Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kuja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banapchari Yamuna Tira Banapchari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudeva. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Today we will be reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text number 6, which is transcendental knowledge. So, I'll first read it and then 3 times, and then you can also recite it. Ajo api san avyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim san adhisthaya sambhavami atmamayaya. Ajo api san avyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim swam adhisthaya sambhavami atmamayaya. Ajo api san avyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim swam adhisthaya sambhavami atmamayaya. Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim swam adhisthaya sambhavami atmamayaya. Acho apusan avyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim swam adhisthaya sambhavami atmamayaya. Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim swam adhisthaya sambhavami atmamayaya. Aja, unborn. Api, although. San, being so. Avyaya, without deterioration. Atma, body. Bhutanam, of all those who are born. Ishvara, the Supreme Lord. Api, although. San, being so. Prakritim, in the transcendental form. Swam of myself, Adhisthaya, being so situated, Sambhavami, I do incarnate, Atma Maya, by my internal energy. Translation and purport from His Holiness Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, by my internal energy I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. Purport. The Lord has spoken about the peculiarity of His birth. Although He may appear like an ordinary person, He remembers everything of His many past births, whereas a common man cannot remember what he has done, even a few hours before. If someone is asked what he did exactly at the same time one day earlier, it would be very difficult for a common man to answer immediately. He would surely have to dredge his memory to recall what he was doing exactly at the same time one day before. And yet, men often dare claim to be God or Krishna. One should not be misled by such meaningless claims. Then again, the Lord explains His Prakriti or His form. Prakriti means nature as well as Swarupa or one's own form. The Lord says that He appears in His own body. He does not change His body as a common living entity changes from one body to another. The conditioned soul may have one kind of body in the present birth, but he has a different body in the next birth. In the material world, the living entity has no fixed body, but transmigrates from one body to another. The Lord, however, does not do so. Whenever He appears, He does so in the same original body by His internal potency. In other words, Krishna appears in this material world in His original eternal form with two hands holding a flute. He appears exactly in His eternal body, uncontaminated by this material world. Although he appears in the same transcendental body and is Lord of the universe, it still appears that He takes His birth like an ordinary living entity. And although His body does not deteriorate like a material body, it still appears that Lord Krishna grows from childhood to boyhood and from boyhood to youth. But astonishingly enough, He never ages beyond youth. At the time of the battle of Kurukshetra, He had many grandchildren at home, or in other words, He had sufficiently aged by material calculation. Still, He looked just like a young man, 20 or 25 years old. We never see a picture of Krishna in old age because He never grows old like us, although He is the oldest person in the whole creation, past, present and future. Neither His body nor His intelligence ever deteriorates or changes. Therefore, it is clear that in spite of His being in the material world, He is the same unborn, eternal form of bliss and knowledge, changeless in His transcendental body and intelligence. Factually, His appearance and disappearance are like the sun's rising, moving before us, and then disappearing from our eyesight. When the sun is out of sight, we think that the sun has set. And when the sun is before our eyes, we think that the sun is on the horizon. Actually, the sun is always in its fixed position, but owing to our defective, insufficient senses, we calculate the appearance and disappearance of the sun in the sky. And because Lord Krishna's appearance and disappearance are completely different from that of any ordinary common living entity, it is evident that He is eternal, blissful knowledge by His internal potency and is never contaminated by material nature. The Vedas also confirm that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is unborn, yet He still appears to take His birth in multi-manifestations. The Vedic supplementary literature also confirms that even though the Lord appears to be taking His birth, He is still without change of body. In the Bhagavatam, He appears before His mother as Narayan with 4 hands and the decorations of the 6 kinds of full opulences. Here, His appearance in His original eternal form is His costless mercy bestowed upon the living entities so that they can concentrate on the Supreme Lord as He is and not on mental concoctions or imaginations, which the impersonally strongly thinks the Lord's forms to be. The word Maya or Atma Maya refers to the Lord's costless mercy according to the Vishwakosh dictionary. The Lord is conscious of all His previous appearances and disappearances, but a common living entity forgets everything about his past body as soon as he gets another body. He is the Lord of all living entities because He performs wonderful and superhuman activities while He is on this earth. Therefore, the Lord is always the same. Absolute truth, and is without differentiation between his form and self or between his quality and body. A question may now arise as to why the Lord appears and disappears in this world. This is explained in the next verse. Hare Krishna. Om Ajnana-Timirandasya Jnana-Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Datati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapata Shri Guru Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Shagrayatam Sagana Raghunathamitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhambitamsha हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यश्च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे. Hare Krishna, thank you so much for taking your time on a Friday evening, which is, in Europe, a time when people go and celebrate outside. But you have taken time to come here and listen to a verse from the Bhagavad Gita, which is really good, and thank you for the opportunity that you have given me to discuss this verse. So as you actually have seen, this is basically a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, wherein Krishna is explaining to Arjuna whatever questions that he had raised, whatever doubts he had. And one of the things which, of course, he has mentioned in this particular verse, if you see the translation, he's saying, although I am unborn, that is, Ajaha means unborn, although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, which means that Krishna actually never takes, it's not like any of us who takes birth and then dies and again takes birth and again dies. Krishna is always unborn and never dies also. So it's a transcendental body. It never deteriorates. Like our body will deteriorate with time, and old age and all that, it deteriorates. Whereas Krishna's body it's transcendental, never deteriorates. And although he says, I am the Lord of all living entities by my internal energy, that means by his internal energy, he is not under the influence of Maya like us. There's no influence of the external energy, basically, which puts us into these three different modes, which affects us, the mode of passion, ignorance, and goodness. Krishna is above all of that, and he says that by my internal energy, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. So Krishna is the only one who can, if you see, appear in his original form itself, whereas we always take different forms. It could be, obviously Krishna, when he wants to, he takes different forms. Like you have Narsimha, he took that form for Prahlad Maharaj, he took the form of Matsya, he took the form of Kurma. So he has the ability and the liberty to take whatever form he wants. But of course his original form is what he says, the two-handed form with the flute. That is the original form that he comes in when he comes, into this world. And that is what is possibly, is explained here to Arjuna by Krishna, that he should understand that why Krishna is Krishna. He is not like anybody else, though it may appear to a lot of us that, he is just a human being, I mean, how is it that, what is this difference between him and us? But he came in this form to tell us that he created us also in his similar form. And therefore, to build up the affection towards him, you have to, if you try to concentrate on any formless entity, it is very difficult to concentrate, You will have to either have some object on which you can concentrate, and why not that particular object could be Krishna, in his 200 form with his flute, could be one such form, or it could be a form of Jagannath Baldev Subhadra, Jagannath, or it could be Narsimha as a form. When you can think of Krishna in that form, then it becomes more easier for you to first concentrate and focus and think about Krishna. And then once you understand the glories of Krishna, then you start appreciating Krishna, because love is one thing, but when you respect somebody, then love automatically also adds to that respect. So only when you understand what Krishna is behind the simple two-handed form, the flute, then you are able to also increase your devotion towards Krishna. And that is what, if you see, in the Srimad-Bhagavatam also, in chapter 10, so in Canto 10, chapter 3, if you see, therein it is mentioned how Krishna actually appeared in Mathura. Let me just tell you that. So, if you see text number 3, verse number 44, it says, Itadvam darshitam rupam prak janma smaranaya me nanyata madbhavam jnanam martya lingena jayate. So, Krishna himself tells Devaki and Vasudeva, actually if you see, he doesn't come in like anybody else, wherein like we come through the sperm that is being given by our father to our mother, and we take birth. But if you see Krishna, when he appeared, he didn't appear like any normal person. He just kind of appeared on that particular day in Janmashtami, and he came and actually projected himself as the four-handed form of Narayan to Devaki, and he said that I've shown you this form of Vishnu just to remind you of my previous births. Otherwise, if I appeared like an ordinary human child, you would not believe that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, has indeed appeared. So Devaki did not need to be reminded that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, had appeared as a son. She already accepted this. Nonetheless, she was anxious, thinking that if her neighbors heard that Vishnu had appeared as a son, none of them would believe it. Therefore, she wanted Lord Vishnu to transform himself into a human child. On the other hand, the Supreme Lord was also anxious, thinking that if he appeared as an ordinary child, she would not believe that Lord Vishnu had appeared. Such are the dealings between the devotees and the Lord. The Lord deals with his devotees exactly like a human being, but this does not mean that the Lord is one of the human beings, for this is the conclusion of non-devotees. Avajnanti mamuda manushim tanum ashritam. Devotees know the Supreme Personality of Godhead under any circumstances. This is the difference between a devotee and a non-devotee. The Lord says, Man bana bhavamad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Engage your mind always in thinking of me, because become my devotee, offer obeisances and worship me. A non-devotee cannot believe that simply by thinking of one person one can achieve liberation from this material world and go back home, back to Godhead. But this is a fact. The Lord comes as a human being, and if one becomes attached to the Lord on the platform of loving service, one's promotion to the transcendental world is assured. So, if you see here also, in the purport, Prabhupada writes that, what is the difference between, he says that, what is the peculiarity, the difference between the birth of Krishna and a common human being? One thing is that Krishna remembers all his previous births, whereas we as human beings forget. Even 1 hour before what has happened, like persons like me forget, what has happened. Whereas Krishna remembers all the births, and we ourselves have gone through various births. And whenever Krishna comes, he will come again in the same form. Whereas we, depending on our karma, could be born as a god, or could be born as an animal, or could be born as a human being. So we will be taking different forms. And as soon as we take a different form, we will forget what we were in the past birth. Of course, some of them are, some unique cases are there where people remember their past birth, but normally, in most of the cases, if you see, we will not remember any of our previous births, or our ability to remember is very short. So that is a unique difference between the births taken by Krishna and the births taken by human beings. So that is what is also mentioned. Whereas he says that he remembers everything of his many, many past births. It's put in kind of apostrophe, whereas a common man cannot remember what he has done even a few hours before. So that is something which, the ability to recall and is the difference. And in spite of that, a lot of people claim to be God. In this particular Kali Yuga also, you see a lot of people claim that I am God. I'm beyond everything. Whereas, this is one of the things which possibly you can directly put forward to somebody who tells what were you in your last birth, or what were you in your birth before that. They may not remember even things like that. And as you see, you also see that, there's a particular word used, prakritim sam adhisthaya. So prakritim means nature or one's form, and Krishna comes in his own form due to his own internal energy. Whereas we as human beings, when we take birth, we are always influenced by the external energy, which is Maya. and by the three modes of material nature, which is the mode of goodness, ignorance, and passion, which based on your karma makes you come into a particular body and particular form into this world. And so depending on whatever you have done in your previous birth, you will be taking that particular form and a particular body, which could also be the form of an animal, depending on how much down you have gone into your, in your previous birth. So you will also, need to ensure that any time and any opportunity you get to be born as a human being, you should take the most advantage of that particular, opportunity that you are today born as a human being. It is not to just enjoy and the material world or take whatever pleasures that we think we have, because of course that we cannot escape from the four different phases of one's life, which is birth, old age, disease, and death. These are some things which you can never avoid. So take the opportunity that you have with all those limitations that exist, with these things which are going to influence you, to see how you can build up your devotion to Krishna and increase your love for Krishna. So that is one thing which is most important here. And so he say that he appears in his own body. He does not change his body as a common living entity changes from one body to another. The conditioned soul may have one kind of body in the present birth, but he has different body in the next birth. But Krishna never, has to be contaminated by the material world, because he's above all of that, and of course he controls that. And it's also mentioned, if you see, that his body also does not deteriorate like anybody else, and therefore from the time of Kurukshetra till the end, you will never see Krishna, an aged Krishna, or you will never seen a photo of an old Krishna and all that. So because he never got old, So the way he came, he just left the way, he went through. And also, if you see the major devotees like Tukaram, Sant Tukaram, and so many of them, they also, went back with their own body. It's very few people who can go back with their own body. It's our soul which kind of, at the time of death leaves us. But Tukaram, people like Tukaram and all of them, they actually went back with their own body to Vaikuntha. So it is very, very seldom, that you have this kind of possibility. And who can really understand Krishna? Because it is very, very difficult also to understand Krishna as a person, or as whatever you can call it, when we say Krishna is God, and what is that? Nobody has seen it. And who has the ability to be able to do that is also mentioned in the Srimad-Bhagavatam. If you see that, Krishna is also supposed to be fear personified. Fear itself fears Krishna, yat bhibeti swayam bhayam. So that is in Srimad-Bhagavatam 1.1.14, it's mentioned. And also, it talks about the what you call as the mind in the Vasudeva mode. So there is a shloka in Srimad-Bhagavatam chapter 4, number 3.23, where it says, Sattvam Vishuddham Vasudeva Sabditam Yad Yate Tatra Puman Apavrita Sattve Cha Tasmin Bhagavan Vasudeva Adokshajo Me Namasa Vidiyate. The condition of pure goodness, that is Shuddha Sattva, in which the Supreme Personality of Godhead is revealed without any covering, is called Vasudeva. In that pure state, the Supreme Lord, who is beyond material senses, is perceived by us. So it's very few pure devotees who have got into this state are able to perceive Krishna, and therefore are able to appreciate and get the love for Krishna for them to really move ahead in our spiritual world. Of course, we are in a different state. Firstly, of course, we are fortunate. One thing is to be born in Kali Yuga, because in Kali Yuga, just by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, you are able to come closer to Krishna. Whereas in the earlier yugas, it was always difficult. You have to do all kinds of austerities or this, which we are fortunate. So most of the devatas also plead to Krishna to be born in Kali Yuga, because in Kali Yuga, this is the fastest and the most easiest way to be able to reach Krishna. By chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So, what one needs to understand, therefore, is that let us, use this opportunity, and therefore, in this particular word, Krishna is explaining, why he is different and he shouldn't be looked at as like a normal human being, which a lot of people try to do. when they look at things like, misinterpret things like the Rasalila, Raslila, which basically even Prabhupada has said that, if you have not reached a particular spiritual stage, it's best not to interpret or draw some conclusions of the Rasalila, because you can never, achieve what Krishna has done. So he can be at n number of places at the same time, which we cannot. So it's like here, if you see, Prabhupada has compared that to the sun. The sun seems that it is rising in the morning, it's there in the afternoon, and the evening it dies. Whereas if actually look at it later on, people did some scientific studies, and they came to the conclusion that the sun is fixed. It is we, because of our imperfect senses, think that the sun, takes birth in the morning, then afternoon it is there and it dies in the night. Whereas the sun is a fixed entity which is always there. Similarly, Krishna is a permanent entity, and he does all this pastimes, or what they call it, incarnations, at the same time in different millennials and different times. It's always being done. So Krishna is always there everywhere at all times, doing various different pastimes. Like if it's 9 o'clock today morning here, then it is, in some other time it's 9 o'clock, because of the time difference that you say on the earth. Similarly, Krishna also does the same thing. He performs these various pastimes in various millennials, and that is the difference that you will see, and that is what is explained also in this particular verse. So, and if you see in the Bhagavatam, as I also already mentioned to you, he appeared before his mother as Narayana with 4 hands and the decorations of the 6 kinds of full opulences, and this is basically just to give her this particular feeling that, he also tells them that in the previous 2 times also he was born to them, when they were his mother and father. So this is the 3rd time that he is again born to them, and when he is born as a human being, and when they serve him like a mother and father, they will automatically attain liberation, because that is what we call as the Vatsalya Ras. How you can create that motherly love and affection for Krishna is one form of love and affection that you can show to Krishna, and that is what is again mentioned here. So if you see, again, if I can go to the verse number 42 in Srimad-Bhagavatam, which talks about his appearance. So, Tayorvam punar evaham adityam asa Kashyapat Upendra iti Vikyato Vamanatvacha Vamanaha. So here he says, this is what I told you. In the next millennium, I again appeared from the 2 of you who appeared as my mother Aditi and my father Kashyapa. I was known as Upendra, and because of being a dwarf, I was also known as Vaman. So this is, O supremely chaste mother, I am the same personality, have now appeared of you both as your son for the 3rd time. Take my words as the truth. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead chooses a mother and father from whom to take birth again and again. So they are both very fortunate that he chose only those 2 of them to be born into their womb. And it says that he took originally the form of Sutapa, from Sutapa and Prishni, then from Kashyapa and Aditi, and again from the same father and mother, Vasudeva and Devaki. In other appearance also, the Lord said, I took the form of an ordinary child just to become your son, so that we could reciprocate eternal love. Jiva Goswami, one of our gurus, has explained this verse in his Krishna Sandarbha, 96th chapter, where he notes that in text 37, the Lord says, Amuna Vapusa, meaning by the same form. In other words, the Lord told Devaki, this time I have appeared in my original form as Sri Krishna. Srila Goswami says that the other forms were partial expansions of the Lord's original form, but because of the intense love developed by Prishti and Sutapa, the Lord appeared from Devaki and Vasudeva in his full opulence as Sri Krishna. In this verse, the Lord confirms, I am the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, but I appear in full opulence as Sri Krishna. This is the purport of the words Tenaiva Vapusa. When the Lord mentioned the birth of Prishnigarbha, he did not say Tenaiva Vapusa, but he assured Devaki that in the third birth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna had appeared, not his partial expansion. Prishnigarbha and Vamana were partial expansions of Krishna, but in this third birth, Krishna himself appeared. So this is, the difference. First he appeared in partial forms, but then in this particular birth he appeared in his original form of Krishna. And that is something, which we also need to understand. And we could also ask, why did Krishna appear then, in this particular form of Sri Krishna in this world? Of course, he came to kill Kamsa, but if you see in the next two verses, Krishna again explains that that why, if in case why does he need to appear in this world, is Paritranaya cha sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samstapnartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So he basically comes, of course, this verse is very well known to us, so he says that in order to deliver the pious and annihilate the miscreants, as well as to establish the principles of religion, I myself appear millennium after millennium. So this was, of course, one of the main reasons that he appeared, because the situation had become so bad in the realm of Kamsa that Krishna therefore decided to come as himself into this world, so that he can then again bring back the whatever you call as dharma into this particular world. And if you see the next verse again, which is also before that, of course, there was, I missed one, is that yada yada I dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyam. So this is also a very well known verse. This is basically a consequences of the verse that he talked when he says that I come in my own form into this world. It says, whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of religion, at that time I descend myself. So this is something which, is the reason that Krishna appears and appeared for us in his actual original form of the two-handed form with the flute, and performed his various pastimes. And we need to therefore ensure that we go through those different pastimes of his and appreciate the things that were done by him. Why? Of course, at the end of the day, why do we need to do that? So that we understand the importance of Krishna and don't speculate, and appreciate that why we consider him as God. What has he done and what he can do. It is very difficult to comprehend today. Of course, in the last 500 years with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all that, we have again got a simplistic, I should say, connection to Krishna, because we won't know what happened 5,000 years back. And in today's world, everything is considered as, this is something which has happened. It's a story. It is not real. Kurukshetra and Mahabharata and Ramayana never happened. These are the things which people always discuss about. In spite of the fact that those are things which are existing in India right now, you can go and actually see it. But it is very difficult even then for a lot of people to comprehend that there was something like that which happened. And, there was Gita which was, spoken by Krishna to Arjuna in Kurukshetra. All of that is through this Bhagavatam, through the scriptures, through our spiritual masters, we have got this opportunity to read through those and try to build a trust and not think of all of this as hypothetical, because in our day-to-day life, it is very difficult for us to imagine these things. We always think that no, how is that possible, how, and if there is something which we need to do, we say that no, that was God, he can do it, but we can't do it. Whereas there are certain other things they say that, oh, he did it, so I can also do it. We should be able to discriminate between what we can do and what Krishna can do. And therefore, we should not think that we are the controller, that we can do everything. This is, I have earned my money, I have earned it. I am doing this. Whereas if you can leave that and be able to only establish your direct relation to Krishna and forget about what is around you, and give that the importance, then it will be easy for you to navigate in this particular material world. Because when you are born, and then as you grow up and change your, to become a youth, and then you have children, and then you get older and you get married, you will automatically build up attachments to people, and inevitably these attachments builds up expectations, and when these expectations happen, then it causes misery for you, because you expect something and somebody then doesn't respond that way, you feel bad about it. And then you also think that, oh, this is my brother or this is my friend, he should have done so and so, but you don't get that particular response, then you get a little bit depressed, and that happens. Whereas if you can just focus on the fact that no, you are in this world just to so that you can again keep or build up your relation to Krishna, all the other things are just in passing, then you would be able to overcome, as I said, becomes easy for you to navigate in your complex journey that you encounter. So I think that is something which you need to develop, and how you do that is, of course, by the simplest method is to chant, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So the more, you take time to chant the Maha Mantra with dedication, it's not, it's simple for me to tell you, please chant the Maha Mantra. So what's the big deal, But if you actually sit down to chant the Maha Mantra, and Prabhupada always says, chant and be happy. He said the simple word, but when you actually sit down to chant the Maha Mantra, you know how difficult it is. Because your mind, it depends on the state of your mind at different times and the distractions that are around you, that you are not able to actually dedicate an honest one chant itself. If you can, when you chant, 16 rounds or 32 rounds or whatever rounds that you chant, if you can chant one honest round, that can create the transformation within your soul. But to reach that one honest chanting, is the most difficult to achieve. So I always think that, you have to keep small goals, that today I did my 16 rounds. Out of that, how much actually I did it with dedication, with that kind of, and then you reach your benchmark of that 108, the first 108. It's only with the small steps, that you can be able to reach that particular stage. And then, as I mentioned to you, as you slowly do it, you will come to that state, Vasudev state, that which they call it, wherein you actually will be able to perceive Krishna within yourself and create that connection to Krishna, and that is what you're looking at finally. So I think in my journey, what I've found, from the time that I, got into this Krishna consciousness phase of my life, and I also told Mataji yesterday that, when you're growing up in my younger days, being from India, you're always exposed to temples, and you go to various temples to pray, but that was completely different reason that I used to go for. I used to go pray for passing my exams, or I wanted to have some money, or some good job, and things like that. Whereas if you actually look at it honestly today, I have spoken to somebody from ISKCON and all that, and when I've spoken to various people, listened to various lectures, I understood the true meaning of when you go to a temple. When you go to a temple to take darshan, you're basically doing nothing but trying to see if you can. You should not go to Krishna or any god in front of and ask for something, ask for material things. That anyway he will give you. You don't need to really go asking for, saying that I want to pass my exams, or I want to, get a good husband, or I want to get so much money, and so on and so forth. That anyway you will get, because that is something which anyway is going to cause you misery. It looks like it will cause you happiness, but it will end up causing you misery. What you should basically ask for when you go to a temple, when you say darshan, is that please, give me love and affection, or ensure that I get the love for you. So when you keep on seeing a form and you get that connect, maybe it seems like for you an idol, but of course, Pran Pratishtha, idol, there's God there. If you can get that connect and that love, that is something which, you should try to achieve. And that's what we say, please, is that darshan when you do the arati in the morning, when you look at your Lordship, there you are trying to see that how he can be in your mind always. And that is only when you go to, maybe you come to Simachalam, you have that environment, the positive vibes, and you do the arati every day, and then you look at the Lord and sing and, and get that connect. Like that, if you do that every day, and we are very fortunate that Krishna has come to this material world in various different forms. So if you don't like Narsimha, or I'm not saying you don't like, but if that form is not something that attracts you, if the form of Vitthal is something that attracts you, or if the form of Jagannath is something that attracts you, then you have to see that, there are some, if you know Murari Bab, he was, part of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's times. He always said that I cannot go behind Hanuman. He always used to like Hanuman, Ram. So that was okay for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It was not forced on them to just think about Krishna. Even if you think about Ram, which is again Krishna only in another form, or somebody thinks of Hanuman, who is a servant of Krishna. So when you pray to go to Hanuman, tell them that please try to make me as you are, as a devotee you are, who is so devoted to Ram. So in these different forms that you try to get, and you try to go and get those different darshans, will ensure that you increase your love and affection to Krishna and your relationship to Krishna. With this particular verse, it is nothing but Krishna is therefore himself told why he is what he is. If you read Bhagavad Gita, there are so many things, and this is just one of the things that he has mentioned. But here, this is something which you need to be therefore particular, that how you can, knowing the way Krishna is, increase the love and affection for him. And that is why what we say is that, we follow the different processes within the Krishna consciousness thing that we do, is that Shravanam, Kirtanam, things like hearing the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam, reading the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam every day. The more you read it, I see that, every time I read particular verses, there is a different interpretation to it. I get different meanings out of it, different realizations based on the experiences that you have in your day-to-day life. You get those particular impressions, and therefore your conviction, increases. Lot of times I found, in certain stresses, I tend to forget certain things. But the very fact that, once I got into this particular moment of Krishna consciousness, my mind has become, I'm not saying it has become now extremely quiet or something, but I have found that I'm able to remember a lot of things more than what I used to earlier. In certain, lot of stressful situations, I would forget a lot of things, like, I forget my key or certain things. And if I do forget or something, I finally realize that it is for a reason that it has happened. So I'm able to conclude certain things that happened to me because of being in Krishna consciousness, because of the fact that, I have gone through certain phases of my life wherein I have understood that, if you depend on Krishna, then automatically he guides you. Because you will always find in your life more downs than ups. There will be ups, but there will be more downs. And it's your internal strength, or whatever you call it, that you can lean on to be able to overcome that obstacle and go forward. And you can see, of course, around, it's always easy for you to compare the rich or things people have than the things which people don't have. You can see those, all those differences, but it's your ability to be able to comprehend the differences between people who are extremely rich. You don't think that they are really enjoying, as per you, they may be enjoying a lot or whatever. Or, there are, of course, the people who are really, you can say that, they may have physical disabilities, to people who are extremely poor, who can't really, have food to eat. But because of the fact that, you understand the overall cycle of karma and what happens, you can then therefore conclude that this is basically because of past karmas. that people are going through certain phases. It doesn't mean that you are not going to help them, but there are some things, even in Kali Yuga, you need to be able to discriminate between with whom you need to actually help and whom not to help. That is also something which sometimes you can get extremely demotivated when you suddenly help somebody and find out that it was a wrong person you ended up helping. So you should be able to also be able to discriminate that. And the more you read the Bhagavad Gita, the more you read the Bhagavatam and take those small steps and chant, then slowly you will find results within yourselves. Because we as human beings are only attached to a particular philosophy or particular way of life when it has direct effects on us. If we can't see those effects, we immediately will leave that. That is to do with chanting itself. It is not very easy to say that every day I can chant 16 rounds. Whereas, you may end up going and watching a movie or doing a, binge watching in some web series. That you may do. You may spend time for that. But you will not take that additional time specifically say that the first priority is to chant the holy name and the Mahamantra. That love, or how do I say, taste, we call it taste. Like you have a taste for watching a movie, can you develop the taste for the Mahamantra and Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam? Because finally, at the end of the day, these are the ones which are going to help you in your journey till the time you are in this material world. And that is something, if you don't realize that, and just think that, okay, this is second priority. Chanting will be done after I have done everything else. Then that is something which is what we are trying to bring here by going through certain verses of the Bhagavad Gita or reading the pastimes of Krishna, is to understand why chanting or thinking about the Lord is so important. And we have been given the most easiest way to ensure that the Lord is always in your mind is by chanting the Maha Mantra with dedication. When you do that, and when you think and when you close your eyes, every time it should be the Maha Mantra or Krishna coming to your mind, not anything else. And if I don't know if you have noticed that if you are under any form of extreme distress or extreme happiness, you always forget God. You always forget Krishna. Of course, extreme distress to the extent that you are helpless, then you seek Krishna. But if you're extremely happy, you will never think of Krishna. You say, oh, it's all happened because of me, I have done this, I deserve it, and I have got it. But that is very momentary. So what is most important in your spiritual journey is to ensure that slowly you start getting connected to Krishna and use the opportunity that you have to be born as a human being to actually ask this question, why I am born here. You are not born just to, as you say, get married, have kids and then just die. That could not be the reason for just coming into this world, that, just passing through this phase, and you say that I have, want to enjoy the luxuries and things like that. And that cannot be the reason. So you have to question that, and why, if you can build that curiosity within yourself, and that is why you are born as a human being, otherwise you would have been born as an animal. Because they don't have the ability to comprehend or discriminate or ask certain questions. Whereas you, as a human being, can ask these particular questions, and you should therefore ask this question of why you are born in this material world. And you are born, and then why you always feel like, you should be able to help others, because a soul is in this position, it always wants to serve. But to whom? The goal is to serve Krishna. And in that bargain, you are serving various different other people, as who are also parts of Krishna. We are also a part of Krishna. We are also eternal. But we are, unfortunately, because of a karma and other nature, we are born into this particular body, and we have to therefore encounter all those, how do I call it, challenges which are there in this particular body, in this particular birth. But we have to transcend those by getting ourselves connected to Krishna, chant the holy name, read the Bhagavad Gita, read the Bhagavatam, and increase your love and affection for Krishna. And if once we are able to reach that particular stage, then automatically, you will be able to go through this material world without whatever that is there, you will be able to overcome it easily, much more easily than what you are able to today. So that is something which you can think about, of how to, as I say, everybody has his own individual opinion, individual thoughts. You may listen to 100 lectures, go through various slokas, and say that this is something is beyond me. I mean, I am not. There are a lot of people who say that, oh, in this particular birth, I know that I am not going to be liberated or whatever. We will see then later on. Let me now enjoy. But if you have, currently you are healthy, you have a normal, compared to the others, disease free or very few diseases, and you have enough wealth, because there is no end to how much wealth you can have. If you can therefore take this opportunity to therefore get connected to Krishna, you will notice the benefits of it, and you will automatically get attracted to it. So with that, I would like to end. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Thank you. If you have any questions, something, otherwise we can end.
Hare Krishna. I have a question, like what would you suggest to develop or like to keep that determination, especially in the first steps? You were mentioning like to focus on the chanting or reading, but especially at the beginning where we try to turn away from the material energy, it's a bit difficult. So do you have some tips or realization that may help in that direction?
See, what I've personally found, because I anyway, the way when I think in retrospect of my journey, how it all happened to me, actually, first time I got connected to the Hare Krishna Mahamantra was also very amazing to me, because I was in my college days, I was doing my engineering. I was about 19 years old when I kind of, some friend of mine who was connected to the Juhu temple. There's a temple, Juhu temple in Mumbai. He was connected to that temple, and he was convincing other friends to come and visit the temple, and he gave this Mahamantra, telling that, please chant this Mahamantra. So I also heard that Mahamantra, but I never went to the temple. And before that, when I was 15 or something, I was also, had this thought in my mind, why I am in this particular world? What I am doing? Is it just to, again come marry and, so I don't know the reason why I had this thought when I was 15 years old. Now in retrospect, when I think of it, okay. So, and then, as I said, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra was given to me when I was 19, and whenever, I used to go to sleep when my mind was, kind of empty, I used to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra without knowing the meaning behind it. So that was when I am 22, 23. And then I came to Germany when I was around 33 years old on an assignment. And we used to visit, the temple in Heidelberg and other places. And then I've also gone to Golok Dham that time. But it was not as a person who was connected to Krishna or ISKCON per se. It was just that I was connected, and incidentally my name, Venkatesh is my name, was given to me by my father because, we had gone to Tirupati, which is again, a holy place in India, which is Krishna there, Lord Balaji or Venkatesh. So my name also is from there. And my father's name is Rajagopalan. He's again Gopala, he's again Krishna. So somewhere or the other, I was, how do I say, Krishna gave me lots of signals. But really when I got connected to Krishna was when I was around, I should say 40 or so, when I actually got connected to the ISKCON and ISKCON movement. And even my chanting, it should sometimes, I wonder, because Mataji used to go to one place. I used to go to drop her for Gita classes. And then, I had gone with one brahmachari to the Gopinath temple. And there was a lot of times, so that Prabhuji said, please, you can, this is your chanting bit, please chant. So there itself I started chanting 16 rounds. So I didn't start like, with one round. Because I was that way, I started with 16 rounds. So that way it all happened. But even today, if you ask me, one of the things which you mentioned is, I keep, asking myself when I chant, of course I get distracted, this iPhone and all that. I see a lot of people who come who do ensure that early in the morning they wake up and give yourself time, because that is the mode of goodness. There are no interruptions, no disturbances, and are able to chant, hopefully with a lot of concentration. If you can, as I said, slowly benchmark yourself, in the sense it's not easy. I mean, there are times when you don't kind of feel anything at all. Once you chant, you feel that you have not given justice to it. Every day I feel that I have not really given justice to my connection, to my cry to Krishna. But if you take those small, how do I say, when you chant 16 rounds, out of that, maybe 2 rounds where you feel, was with a lot of dedication, and can you increase that slowly? Can you increase that particular thing? And then, because of that, I see, a lot of times I've seen that when I want to visit a holy place, a lot of people who are not able to visit. Whereas when I have given a thought, got the opportunity. I cannot correlate that to, other than the fact that, Krishna is listening to me. Maybe it is because of whatever inattentive chanting I do. That's what they say in the mercy of Krishna. Even if he gives you a little mercy, these are the things he does. And if you can connect that, then your faith and belief in the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam also increases. Because we as human beings, of course you are a lot younger, we as human beings will only, and you're coming from also a different culture compared to, what we have been growing up. In spite of that, Krishna, in spite of that, you are still trying to follow, trying to make your best efforts, and you could at any point of time get distracted or, fall down, also can happen. But if you can connect these small incidents in your life, that is because Krishna is doing that in a very positive way, then you will keep getting attached to it and put in those efforts. Otherwise, if you don't think that is the case, then you will be away. Because you see people around you who don't. They do for some time and then they get away from it. They say, no, I don't want to do it. In spite of the fact that, there's so much of depth and so much of thing in this particular Srimad-Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. And that's what they say, that anybody and everybody cannot understand Bhagavad Gita, because there's Guhyam. This is something which is strictly so much of secret within that. Why? Because not everybody gets that realization and that thought. And you will find that challenge more and more. But if you find by doing this and connect small things in a positive way which has affected your life, then you will feel the benefits of it. And then you will do it more seriously. So there is no simple answer to, saying that if I do this, there is no formula saying that if I do this way, my concentration will increase on chanting the Maha Mantra, and my ability to understand certain things in the Bhagavad Gita increases. No, I don't think there is a formula. It is an own individual journey. But for me, myself, I have found that a lot of things, positive things happen to me when connected to Krishna, since the time I got connected to Krishna seriously. And there are challenges happening, will happen, but I'm able to overcome them and find a reason behind that. And the next thing that happens, I find that it was really good that this has happened. So that way, I find that I'm more and more getting connected and serious about and trying to understand things more in depth. And that's the easiest way that I can explain. I don't know whether it's something which you have been able to understand, but this is my journey that I am able to share. So even today, I can't say that, I am chanting properly, but even with this inattentive chanting, Krishna has been very merciful towards me and always has ensured that, only good things happen to me. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.